And to think, 2003 was 15 years ago. The Ang Lee Hulk movie released alongside with the underrated X-Men sequel, X2. 50 Cent dropped his hit single Into Club, and MTV had an animated Spider-Man show aimed at mature audiences. 2003 was an interesting year, to say the least. I remember back when I first saw the teaser for this on VHS. This show is actually the only reason why I changed the channel to MTV. As I was doing research on the show while rewatching it, I found out that it was actually supposed to be an animated adaptation of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, with series writer pre-2011 Brian Michael Bendis attached as a producer. Then Sam Raimi's Spider-Man hit theaters while the show was in pre-production, and we all know how much of a smash hit that movie was. So direction shifted to make the show a loose continuation with Peter in college. Brian Michael Bendis was still attached. Unlike other previous Spider-Man animated series, this one was not 2D. Instead, they opted for 3D animation, which is more time-consuming and expensive. I never found a reason for why they did this, especially if the network funding you is MTV. Their animation budgets aren't exactly the highest. While the production of the show was a lot more relaxed in terms of creative freedom, they weren't allowed to show elderly people because MTV executives feared that their appearance would deter their youth audience from watching? What? This is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. Old people scaring off your audience? That's just... That's just crazy. One last thing I'll talk about before I get to the review is the show had numerous production delays. Therefore, episodes aired out of order. Even with me watching the show supposedly in the correct order, it still doesn't make sense because certain characters' relationships are different between each episode, and it just leaves you with your head scratching what happened. It's almost as if the writers weren't communicating and they wanted to do their own thing separate from each other. That's one massive negative already. Alright, well aside from that, how does the show fare? Like I said before, Peter is in college and is still friends with Harry and Mary Jane. He continues to be Spider-Man while he tries to take control of his life as Peter Parker. Peter is probably the most comic book accurate character in the series. He's usually in a no-win situation and is always struggling to have balance between his two lives.
Looking a little too good there, Peter.
He's the nerdy, awkward Peter and the quippy, badass Spider-Man. Harry Osborn. Good lord, he doesn't even have the same hair color as James Franco. This is based off the Sam Raimi Spider-Man series, right? Loosely. Then why be a continuation at all?
Who are you and what have you done with Harry Osborn?
Sorry about the side tangent there, it's just a bit strange is all. He doesn't really act like Harry from the movies, he acts more like the college party boy from the comics. Brimming with confidence, optimism, and pure hatred for Spider-Man. Well, that last part wasn't in the comics until he was out of college, but you know what I mean.
I begged the Bugle to give me an actual job, not just the freelance stuff.
What'd they say?
They told me McDonald's is hiring all shifts.
Dude, all the fries you can eat. You don't even need to supersize.
Then there's Mary J. Holy jugs! Oh, whoa, wow! That's Mary Jane. This one's definitely fit to be a supermodel. She's also a goth. Say, wasn't Mary Jane a goth in the Ultimate Spider-Man comic? I guess Bendis just likes making Mary Jane a goth. This version is definitely one of the hotter in editions, and I'm actually willing to admit, probably the only goth that I would ever say is hot. She's also into theater. At least that's accurate alongside with the red hair. She's very interested in Peter, but he can't seem to find the time to be with her. which is why she goes back to being interested in Spider-Man. Oh yeah, also there's Indy. She's not that interesting of a character, and J. Jonah Jameson is in the show very minimally. I like how the characters are written most of the time. Definitely has that Bendis touch. One thing a lot of people don't know is that before Neil Patrick Harris starred in Harold and Kumar and How I Met Your Mother, he voiced Peter Parker and Spider-Man. He's pretty good in the role. Here's a few of his highlights.
So go with me here. I run around Manhattan saving people, and I'm a menace. Turbojet steals a small fortune, and he's instant hero. Maybe I need an image makeover. I'm Spider-Man.
Not very fair. A human spider against an unarmed man.
Yeah, but each of your arms is the size of Brooklyn. No acceptance speech? You didn't thank your manager, your agent, your assistant, your shrink, the Dalai Lama?
I'm a witch. What can I tell you?
Yeah, cute trick. Where were you when we had an energy crisis? Sorry.
This isn't studying. It should be no big. Why not just go to a party like everyone else? Just 'cause I'm not like everyone else? I bet the X-Men get to go to parties. Would the world, come to an end if Spider-Man took one lousy night off? Okay, you made your point.
Ian Ziering has pretty good line delivery. He also talks like this. Now if you'll excuse me, it's pizza time. Mary Jane has a sexy voice, which she should, because she's saucy. I would have liked to have seen this series in 2D because the art style would have just been gorgeous to look at. Not saying it's not in 3D, it's just, unless you have a movie budget for 3D animation, you're going to have to reuse the same assets numerous times, which they did. The animation, mainly the action scenes, weren't all that great either. Very slowly paced and had slow movement. 3D tech was still in its infancy and was far from being perfected. The only other show I can think of that was 3D around the time is Jimmy Neutron.
Whatever.
There's a word for someone like you.
Nice of you to drop by.
Not a problem. Will I be fighting any of your henchmen, or did you already eat them?
Let's show him what he's made of.
Didn't your mother tell you never to play with guns?
The soundtrack is very synth-based, but nothing memorable aside from the main theme. Speaking of which, it doesn't really sound like a Spider-Man theme to me. It sounds more like music being played in the background at a fashion show. I have to say, they didn't utilize that many Spider-Man characters or villains. They took the Nolan approach before the Nolan approach was even a thing. By the way, that's a term I just made up. This show was probably expensive to produce, and with ratings being poor, the show was canceled on a cliffhanger ending. After just 13 episodes and a cancellation, I will give MTV Spider-Man a recommendation. It's easily the web slinger's shortest running show, and one of the most underrated. With all that said, I'm Lino Maras of the MMC Productions crew, and I'll see you next time.